Good evening, boys and girls. Are you ready for bed? Are you ready for another lights out bedtime story? Well, this story is called Billy and the Whale, Part 3. I hope you like it. And remember to hit subscribe or like or follow on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Banana, anywhere you listen. And as you listen, I want you to think about what you might do with the present, the prize that Billy gets from the princess. Once upon a time, boom, bada boom, bada boom. The noise grew louder as Billy and his grandpa marched up out of the shore and on to the hot, fine, sandy beach. They grabbed the wet, heavy rope and pulled the rowing boat up onto the sand. It was starting to get dark, but the fire in the trees behind grew lighter and brighter, stronger and hotter. Billy had seen the whale, so he was feeling a bit less scared, but Grandpa's face was still tight and worried. Billy had the knife and the gun ready, but he felt clumsy, and he wasn't sure how or what he was supposed to do and how he would use it. He'd never used a gun before. I mean, why would he need to know? A little boy. His confusion and fixation on how clumsy he felt soon moved aside for the clear and present realization that he didn't know what was behind the trees, nor did he know why the island was on fire, or what was making those ear-pounding noises that were coming from within, from the core, from the amber jungle. The orange glow of the sky was making Billy scared, but Grandpa stood firm. "Follow me," he ordered, and they continued up the beach. It seemed to take 10 steps to move an inch as the incline of the beach got steeper and steeper until they reached the top, the grassy part. Now they were facing the tree line, only one way, straight ahead. The noise was getting louder and louder, boom, bada boom, bada boom, and they could feel the heat from the fire bursting through the trees now, and then they could hear the screams and the noises. Billy finally spoke to Grandpa. "What are we doing, Grandpa? And who are these people?" Grandpa replied, "I don't know, but the whale told us we had to help these people. That's what I do. In this magic ship, the whale comes to visit me and tells me where we have to go, and we go there. And there's always somebody that needs help. And this time, we are here, and I needed you to come and help me." And so Billy and his grandpa walked through into the belly of the forest, into a big and wide opening in the middle of the island. And there is where Billy saw everything. In the middle of the island is where the people of the island must have been living, and all the houses built around the edges of the large opening were on fire, and in the middle of the houses was a large pyramid rising up past the tops of the trees well above the houses. It was made out of bamboo and sticks and trees, and on the top of the triangle temple was the king of the island and his daughter, the princess. They were both stuck and trapped like a group of wolves might trap 2 little mice. They were tied to poles at the very top of the pyramid, and underneath, dancing around the pyramid with these terrible, terrible monsters, big like giants and hairy like gorillas with big red eyes and big, sharp teeth. Their arms were very long, with claws at the end of their creepy fingers, and they were dancing and jumping up and down around. They were marching and parading around the pyramid like a football team that had won the World Cup. But they were not smiling and holding up a golden cup. For these mighty beasts, their trophy was a king and his little princess daughter. Billy did not know what to do. He was frozen, and even the heat of the flames would not thaw him back into action. He was so scared until he looked up, and he saw the king of the island crying, looking at his daughter, trying to get some help. Billy looked at his grandpa, and Grandpa gulped. Grandpa looked at Billy, but I don't think Grandpa knew what to do either. Let's do it, Grandpa said. Do what? Billy pleaded for a reassuring answer. Grandpa picked up his gun and aimed it at one of the monsters. Bang! The shot hit the monster in the arm. Well, that was it. Billy tried to pick up his gun and shoot, but he didn't know how to do it. He couldn't pull the trigger. "Give it to me!" screamed Grandpa, and he showed Billy how to pull the trigger back and push the button before he pressed the trigger, releasing the bullet that shot through the thick smoky air to hit another monster in one of its eyes. That made all the monsters stop and turned around. They stopped dancing. All 10 of them looked at Billy and his grandpa, and then all 10 of them roared a terrible roar, their mouths wide open, revealing razor-like sharp teeth that sparkled against their blood-red eyes. The princess at the top of the pyramid had fainted because it was so scary, and the king screamed and pleaded for help. Billy and Grandpa still did not know what to do, and then the 10 monsters put down their fiery sticks and started running towards Billy and his grandpa, growling like angry tigers. "Ah!" screamed Billy. "Let's go!" Grandpa quickly agreed, and they turned around and they ran back towards the water. They had no idea what they were going to do, and they couldn't fight all these 10 monsters. But as they were running back to the rowing boat, an idea came to Billy. He dropped his gun and ran, not straight ahead, to the shore, but instead took a sharp right and ran around the side of the trees as Grandpa kept running towards the water. And because Billy was so small and it was so dark, the monsters didn't see him, and they all kept chasing Grandpa. As they were chasing Grandpa, Billy went back towards the pyramid and picked up one of the big sticks that was on fire, and he then turned back towards the shore and started to run at the monsters. So the monsters were chasing Grandpa, and Billy was chasing the monsters. As Grandpa was rowing the boat back to the ship, the monsters stood on the sand, growling and screaming at the captain. Billy threw the burning stick at the group of monstrous creatures, and as soon as the flames touched the monster's fur, they were all alight. The monster's fur was on fire. All 10 monsters were on fire, and they all jumped into the water to stop the fire from burning them alive. And that's where the whale came in. The whale winked at Billy and swam up from the deep ocean and up and up and up and jumped higher than ever into the sky, as high as an apartment block, a block of flats. And as the monsters were putting out their fiery bodies, the huge whale crashed down and landed on them all. The whale then smashed his big tail against all the 10 monsters, and they went flying right across into the middle of the deep, dark ocean, where they sank to the bottom like stones, never to be seen again. Then the whale swam up again and launched into the sky and splashed its enormous tail as its huge body crashed back into the water. The whale's body and tail created a mighty splash that sent water and waves flying into the middle of the island, where it extinguished and put out the fires that the monsters had made. Grandpa came back to the island in the rowing boats, where he met Billy on the shore. They looked at each other in disbelief, as if they couldn't believe what had just happened. It was too amazing. "So, Grandpa, you were just the best hero in the world." Billy smiled. Billy and Grandpa made their way back into the middle of the island, where they climbed up the pyramid and cut the rope to release the king and the princess. Once free, the princess woke up, and the king was so happy that his daughter had been rescued that he told Billy that he would grant him anything at all from his kingdom on the island. "Even though our island is very small," continued the king, "I'm going to grant you such a big prize. But first, let's go and eat." And so the king took Billy to the other side of the island with Grandpa and the princess, where they sat down at the king's dinner table and had a very delicious feast, a buffet dinner. And as they talked over the food, it turned out that the princess was exactly the same age as Billy, and the king had the same birthday as Grandpa. They talked about all the adventures that Grandpa had been on, and then the princess described all the beautiful things on their island, while the king talked about the island and his history. Then it was Billy's turn to talk, but all he could talk about was going home alone after school, cooking his own dinner, washing, and getting ready for bed by himself, and going to sleep before his mum came home. He explained that he couldn't see his dad until the weekends because he was always working, and for as long as he could remember, Billy had just been alone. His parents had to work because they didn't have much money, and then he started to cry. The dinner table was very quiet, and the king knew what the prize should be. After dinner, the king and the princess took Billy and Grandpa around the corner to a secret cave. They walked into the cave, and Billy's eyes lit up as the king spoke. "This is all for you," said the king. Billy's eyes grew larger as he looked around at all the gold and diamonds and jewelry and treasure, more than anybody could ever need. "I'm going to give this to you," said the king happily. And so the king and Grandpa and the princess and Billy and some of the king's men moved all the gold and diamonds and jewelry into the rowing boats, and then they rowed all the way back to the ship. Billy could not thank the king enough, and the princess gave Billy a little kiss on the cheek and told him not to worry about anything now. "So go home and live happily ever after," she said. They got to the boat, packed all the treasure on board, and set sail, heading towards the blue whale, and followed the path that it was swimming. It had been such an amazing long day. Billy and Grandpa went down into the ship again, and they washed their faces and brushed their teeth, and Billy lay down on his bed, where he fell fast asleep as soon as his head hit the pillow, even without a kiss from his mom. He had the deepest sleep anybody could ever have, and he must have slept for days. But when Billy opened his eyes, he was back in his bedroom, and it was dark. His mom had just given him a kiss on the head, and Billy rubbed his eyes as if it were all a dream. What time is it? What day is it? It's Monday night. I've just come home from work, said Mom. Stay, Mom, please. I was having such a strange and scary dream, said Billy. Of course I'll stay. But I was just about to ask you, why is your face all black? You got black marks all over it. It looks like soot or smoke. Did you forget to wash before you went to bed, and have you been playing with the matches again? Billy jumped up and ran to the mirror to check his face. It was still sooty and black from the fire from the middle of the island. Billy ran into the living room, but still the same. Nothing had changed. He ran into the kitchen and looked under the cupboard, under the sink, and reached out and pulled out the tattered envelope. He pulled out the card and read it, but the words had changed. It now said, "You followed the whale. You rescued the princess. You deserve the treasure. Now live happily ever after." And just then, Billy saw the whale at the corner of his eye, and he jumped up and followed it to his toy room, and there he opened the cupboard and was almost blinded by the gold and diamonds and jewelry. It was all the treasure from the secret cave, from the king and the princess of the island, and it was real. Billy screamed and called his mom. She couldn't believe her eyes, and she called Dad straight away. "Come back home now," she shouted with joy down the phone, and Billy's dad came back home that very night. And the next day, they took all the treasure and put it in a bank, and they got hundreds and millions of pounds and dollars and euros. After that day, Billy's mummy and daddy didn't go back to work, not for a single day. They stayed home. And for the next long time, Billy grew up with his mummy and his daddy every single day. He got up in the morning and his mum was making breakfast. His daddy would help him get ready for school, and as he came back after school, dinner was ready, made by his mom or his dad, and Mom would help him do his homework. And the family would go out and take holidays on the weekends, and they would use the money to help people who needed it. And that's what they did for a long time. And often Billy would tell the story of Grandpa and the blue whale. And then, so often, on his way home, Billy would see the blue whale, and the blue whale would give him a wink. The end.